What's good, y'all? It's the Demouchet REACT, and we're back with another video. Who we got today, C?
Today we're back with another American reaction. So excited about this video. If you're new to us
and we're new to you,
make sure you scroll down,
hit that subscribe button,
and turn on the post notification bell.
Because we're on the road to 200K.
And we cannot get there without you guys, alright? Join the family. Without further ado, let's get into the video.
Let's get it.
I got a 6!
Out of
This
10.
might be one of the most fascinating parts of Dutch culture, but it's controversial. That a score of 6 is praised. Could this be the secret to why the Dutch are so happy? A culture of just good enough? Or is it a recipe for a mediocre life?
Ik hoop dat ik vandaag een 6 haal.
This is the Dutch culture of 6s. I remember when I first got my test score studying in the Netherlands, a 7. But then some Dutch students were so happy because they just got 6s. And then they told me that a 7 is actually quite good, maybe too good. Because a 6 is actually a student 10. For those that aren't familiar with the Dutch culture of 6s, let's hear from a former student and current educator.
Isn't this culture where they don't necessarily want you to be better?
Better than anyone, like everyone is the same.
I forgot how that law went.
Yeah, I forgot the name of it, but it was the...
Isn't a list of couple things that they've written down.
Anybody.
Yeah, you're not better. So does this apply with the 6?
Probably so.
That's why he says controversial. Ooh, because I would have been...
Controversial to us, not to them.
Yeah, my 10 would have been a 10.
Right.
Yeah, I knew it.
Want the 10.
I knew the answer. I'm sorry. Okay.
This culture is that mostly in high school when students are like 13, 14, 15 and when they are adolescents and puberty, they don't mind that much about their grades. They just want to pass and have a good time. And a lot of Dutch parents will not push them to have high grades, but they will just be more concerned about their well-being.
And so I spent hours and hours reading comments.
I really do like that. Now, if this is for... When I saw the title say performance, I thought it was like athletes. But if this is for school, I agree with that wholeheartedly. Like, our educational system here, like how it's structured, it puts so much pressure on children from as little as kindergarten, honestly. So let's see what they got to say about it.
Whoa! I gotta say something about it.
Okay, what you
because it's like the child go to school and then they have homework, and I mean you got to be there for like 8 hours. But the child has homework throughout the course of class. Right. To come home to have homework throughout the day of your being off of school.
Right.
And 9 times out of 10, for most parts, those students outside of school don't have enough time to be kids.
Right.
And now they're stuck with like 3 hours of the day to just probably eat supper, go to bed, play a game or two, and that's it.
And the emphasis is on test scores. It's not really on retaining the information you learn. You know,
yeah, so we stuck with A, B, C, D, y'all.
Yeah.
And then grade point average.
Right.
Y'all got the extension of a 6 with a...
6 is good.
Yeah,
it's classic.
Read it from YouTube to try to understand more. And there seems to be 2 groups. There's a group that is proud of the 6s culture. They say it's about efficiency.
So students who participate in 6's culture will be very proud if they get like a 5.5 because it's like, oh, I did the bare minimum, but I got like the maximum result out of it.
There's more room for their personal development and not just having high grades.
Well-being.
So your personal health and well-being is valued more than achieving things.
And there's another group that's against it. They say it's actually a negative term. These people are lazy, they lack ambition and a good work ethic. And it's become quite mainstream today. There's even a saying about it.
Beter een 6 zonder stress dan een 7 zonder leven.
Hey, maar dat is goed. Whereas in the US, the mentality is more like this.
Do something that brings you closer to greatness. That's your choice.
Now, I grew up in a society that...
That's 1,000% true, y'all.
Yeah.
Whoa, he did not miss.
Now listen, when it comes to like what he just played, I want to be the best me I could ever be.
But
ever. I don't want to. If I'm in this season at age blah blah blah, the next year I need to be a little higher.
I mean, and that's just our mindset. We feel that that level of development has to play a role in our life, or for some people, or for most cases, we don't feel like we're growing.
Right.
And we want to grow, you know what I'm saying? But I think you know, I mean, we could dive into it if y'all want to.
Right.
How times are set up, we have so much things at our disposal that we don't necessarily focus on what we need to grow ourselves. It's like we're comfortable. We got so many things that allows us to be comfortable. But then you have another group as well that wants to say, you know what, I can be disciplined and I can put this to the side so I can focus on something that makes me better.
Right.
And that's just the culture. It's hand in hand.
Right. I don't know if Sweden is one of those places that no, Sweden is the happiest country, right? One of the happiest.
One of the
countries.
happiest, yeah.
But here, some of us, if we're stagnant, we actually get depressed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so, but when we relate this to school, I understand. But everyday life, I have to be growing.
Everyday life is going to show you that you have to be growing here. Because you can't sit here and then you get on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, wherever you at,
Social
and then
pressures.
you see somebody just putting up in one of the most lavish, or they chilling in one of the most nicest cribs, or they got the biggest chain, or they showing all their money. It's like, you sit back and you're like, hold on.
I don't really care about that.
No, I'm saying, but that's just the image they show you when it comes
pressure.
to so many different levels of what it looks like to be successful.
Right.
And for some people who don't really are moving at the speed they want to, that can play a toll on their mindset. You know what I'm saying? Because they know when they get to where they want to get, something in there is going to resonate with them. They may not show it, but they're going to be comfortable enough to say that I'm able to now.
Right. I wonder how you all feel like people in Sweden. This is not Sweden, Lord.
Dutch, baby.
This is the Netherlands.
The Netherlands.
All right, people in the Netherlands who follow like social media influencers on Instagram. Instagram is like one of those places where you have to be perfect.
Yeah, I feel that.
I wonder, how do y'all feel about that? Like, if you follow people on Instagram from the U.S., how y'all feel about it? Because they have to post the perfect this, the perfect that.
Yeah.
And y'all are okay with what y'all have. I don't follow like Dutch influencers, so I wouldn't kind of know the difference, honestly.
Yeah. And we're going to get to it. Let's get it.
He's the A players, not the C players. But it's more than that. It's really about realizing one's full potential. But then the Dutch are actually quite known for their innovations. Did they do that with a sexist mentality? Or do they have a secret that the world doesn't know about? In this video, let's dive deeper into the sexist culture, how it compares to America's performance culture, and then we'll look into the pros and cons of the Dutch culture of sixes using the latest neuroscience.
2 and 3 Dutch students make no effort to get higher grades than necessary for their exams.
This was the finding of a large-scale European study, that Dutch students were the most satisfied with just passing or getting a 6. Only 34% of Dutch students wanted to get the highest grades possible, compared to the European average of 59%. It's been a controversial topic in Dutch culture and education. Some argue that modern-day society is becoming more performance-like, which could lead to more mental health problems. In fact, almost 20% of the Dutch population is experiencing some symptoms of burnout. And that's also why many Dutch medical programs are planning or thinking about dropping the cum laude designation. And as of 2023, there are no more excellent schools, a title that was given to schools that had high quality education, because these titles could lead to more competition, more stress. In the US system, most cannot do well with just a sexist mentality, but one can get by in the Netherlands due to the system. Let me explain.
In the Netherlands, at the important age of 12, a student goes from elementary to high school. And where a kid goes to high school is based on the results of a standardized test and the advice of the elementary school. There are 3 main types of high school. VMBO prepares students for MBO, which is like a junior college that prepares students for a vocation or trade. HAVO prepares students for University of Applied Sciences, or HBO, more practical. VWO prepares students for university, WO, which is the most theoretical and often referred to as the highest level of higher education.
And once a student gets into high school, one only needs to maintain a 6 in order to move to the next level. And studies show that something interesting happens when someone gets into high school. Grades drop from the first year to the 3rd year. Now, during the first week of my master's program, each of us gave a presentation about our country's education system. When the Dutch students presented, they told the class that high school was relatively easy. They didn't really experience stress until university. And I was surprised because high school for me was one of the most stressful periods of my life. In the US, going to a high school is mostly dependent...
Listen, this is so funny, y'all. I remember after I graduated high school, I used to have nightmares that I was back in high school. That's how stressful high school was.
Oh, I ain't never had no nightmares.
In comparison to college,
yeah,
high school was stressful. And I went through college as a mother and a wife.
And you would think those titles will, you know, have you kind of going back and forth. But,
right,
you know, your high school and you just going in and out. You know, it's that type of time. I didn't think it was stressful. I think it was just more so of, man, my personality was bright, so I didn't take nothing too serious, as I should have. Yeah, but I passed. I walked the stage.
You would have been good in the Netherlands. You would have been awesome.
Yeah, I think I would have been an MBO. Was it MBO?
The trade?
The sixes?
The trade?
I think it was a VMO. Which one was it?
Child, we'll have to go back to the graphic.
You was one all the way to the end.
Yep. Want to go all the way.
And again, y'all, I think that's just the preference of it, though. Some people do want to be great, and some people just are comfortable with it. So it raises a question: what does the parent tell the child when they are going to school? Sit in the class, sit at the front of the class, pay attention,
That was me.
and do the best you can. Or they say, just do what you can and get out. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
well, see, mine was a little different. I had a goal I was trying to reach.
And
First generation graduate.
I feel that.
You know, that was my goal. That's what pushed me.
I feel that. That's big.
On your location, but after high school, you can either go to a community college, a state school, or a public or private university. But how well you do in high school determines what college you get into.
See,
and
all
it's
that
not
plays
just
a
your
role.
grades, because acceptance into a university in the US depends on many factors. It's really competitive, especially if you want to get into an Ivy League school like Harvard or Stanford, where only 4% get in. And that's why so many kids are ecstatic when they finally get accepted into their dream school.
Thank you, because Lord, they would be hollering for real.
Their whole
Now
life
let's talk a bit about grades.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you know that the average grade point average of an acceptance into Harvard is 4.2 out of 4? That's because you can get above a 4.0 in the US if you take advanced placement classes or honors classes. These are more difficult classes and you get more points.
Has a grade point average of 11.84.
And in the US, your high school or university grades can depend on a curve. This means that your grade is dependent on how you compare against other students in the class. So this kind of creates this competitive culture that is based on grades. Well, let's hear from a Dutch teacher who teaches American students.
No, and that's something I don't like in the system here, because your child, or as a student as myself, just put myself in the, you know, in the conversation. I could be doing great, but you have a new student that come in, scores off the radar, and now I'm looked at as the one who need help.
Right.
I'm like, whoa,
Right.
I was killing it. Why do I all of a sudden need help? Why do you got to put a tutor on side of me? Why I'm being told that I need medication?
Wait a minute.
See, and it scoops so low because they start to see you as you're not doing as great as him,
Right.
or you're not doing as great as her. So we need to see what's wrong with you. Let's have a meeting with your mama.
Right.
I'm like, bro, no. Put him in another class or something, cause jeez.
And that's not even discussing the standardized testing. That they have to do so many tests that they have to do in a year. So that they can compare to other students.
Because they're comparing to other schools. And we ain't
funding.
We ain't gonna go.
Y'all know I don't like when we
talk
about
the funding part. Get into all of that. Because it's crazy. Like, it's really a ladder system that they operate on.
For Dutch students, I guess a 6 is enough, but they still are interested in the learning process. And for the American students, often the grades are very important, more important than really learning.
This is a very important point. Because the American education system is so centered on grades, students focus more on getting good grades than actually learning. Maybe that's why Americans have this reputation of...
If you met someone from Amsterdam, what nationality would they be?
I have no idea. Amsterdamian.
Amsterdamian.
I gotta go against what that was, because that's not how that operates. You can't not learn something and all of a sudden have a great grade in it. I have had plenty of times where I didn't study and I failed because I didn't study. But if I learned it, if I understood it, and then if I memorized it as well, then I can pass my test, and that's how you move forward. But I kind of can understand a hint of that, but for the majority, I don't think that not learning is going to help you pass the grade. You have to learn it.
Well, the tests are more important. Like learning the exact answers as it is in the book is more important.
You're learning it.
You are, but the homework, I don't want to go into that. But anyway, I was going to say that is why we are seeing an increase in homeschooling now.
Ooh, yeah, that is true.
System, on the other hand, is based on pass-fail, meaning that if someone gets a 5.5 or 6, they pass and move on to the next level. But many also pointed out that passing or getting a 5.5 or 6 in the Netherlands is harder than other countries like the US. For example, I got a 3.6 GPA or a 7.7 doing my bachelor's in the US compared to a 7.98 doing a master's in the Netherlands, which is kinda comparable, but again, in the US it depends on what kind of school you get into. If you go to a top school, it's a lot harder to get a good GPA because you are in a class with the top students around the country and in the world. The other thing to note is that rankings matter a lot more in the US. It's all about standing out, the brand name college, the brand name job, the brand name company. And if you want a brand name company in the US, going to a good college helps. And going to a good college is going to be dependent on your grades. But in the Netherlands, most of the universities are pretty good, and when it comes to finding a job after graduation, getting good grades matter more in the US. For example, almost everyone I knew had their grade point average on the resumes after graduation. But what I found interesting in the Netherlands is those that want to excel and do excel, they are sometimes looked down upon. And this could be explained by the doe normaal concept in the Netherlands, or the tall poppy syndrome, because Dutch society has been taught to act normal, to not stand out, to stand in, whereas in American culture it's really about standing out and being unique and different. So now that
I just want to hear you guys in the comment section, how do y'all feel about what he just said there? Being overly successful, being great in class, and getting a 7.7 or a 10 is looked down upon, you know?
I can see how the children will be more comfortable that way, with everybody have to at least get this and that is okay, and you don't have to go overboard trying to overexert yourself to, you know, get a higher grade.
But if it's in you, it's in you.
Yeah, it is. Because now they are even exploring mindfulness classes in our schools. Yeah. Because the children are so stressed.
Yeah, they sit in class with their eyes closed.
Yeah, doing meditation.
Meditating.
Yeah, I actually like that.
It's different.
I don't know. Our culture for so many years, like, I mean, we can go back all the way in history when we broke away from the UK. They thought they was better. You know, so that has been implemented in our whole country. If you come to Texas, you better come with the biggest everything. Okay? Because that's how the culture
Texas is in culture. They do it big. I feel you.
Talked a bit about the Dutch sixes culture. What are some of the pros and cons? Let's start with the pros. Efficiency. The argument is that if you do just enough to pass, you save a lot more time to do other things.
To me, a passing grade of 6 equals the optimal result with the least amount of effort. If I have higher than a 6, then I've studied for too long.
And here's an example that I've heard several times. At the end of the year, a student understands what score he or she needs in order to pass. And so they spend the time to calculate what is the minimum grade that I need in order to pass the final exams. It's about working smarter, not harder. And a person like Bill Gates would choose a lazy person to do a hard job because the lazy person will find an easy way to do it. And sixes culture could lead to happier kids. Now, could this be the reason why Dutch kids are the happiest in the world? There's this famous study done on decision making and happiness that was captured in the popular book The Paradox of Choice. Maximizers versus satisficers. The maximizers were those that spent more time trying to find the best choice and also potentially the best grade. Now, the satisficers are those that spend the least amount of time trying to find a choice that's good enough. And what they found from the research is that while maximizers achieve more, it was the satisficers who were happier. It's all about expectations, and if we look at the happiness equation, which is reality divided by expectations, for satisficers, because they have low expectations and they're okay with good enough, as a result, they tend to be happier. Because when you don't need to compete and you only need to pass, there's less pressure to get higher grades, and you tend to compare yourself less.
I get it.
Because the larger societal problem today is that people are comparing themselves more and more today compared to the past. And this rise of perfectionism, which is linked to maximizers, tends to lead to mental health problems as well.
Which leads me to my most important point. The US education system favors the maximizers and drills perfectionism into students, whereas the Dutch education system supports the satisficers. Let's continue.
Now, what are potential...
Hold on, so for me, hearing all of this is like, man, It's like two guys being, it's like two guys standing in front of a tree. One is gonna cut the tree down and say it was in my way.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can see. The other guy's gonna cut the tree down and he gonna say, now I can build a house.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the mindsets of it. One is gonna go overboard to push himself to get more out of what they're looking at, while the other one's gonna look at it and say, I got it out the way.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can see better.
Right. I think it's important just to know that students have different learning styles.
Different learning styles. That
and teachers need to be able to recognize the different learning styles, you know? Like, I don't know when it comes to Dutch how like, if there is a child who wants the perfect everything, do y'all have that intervention and, like, chill out? You okay? Just do good enough? Like, how do y'all approach it? Because here, the opposite is true. If a child isn't performing at its ultimate best, that's when the intervention happens.
Yeah, and I can even picture to you like this. You may have one student, because about personalities, right? You may have one student that's in class and they just learning differently. They may not be catching on as fast, and you have another one that is. But the real question will go to the teacher. Is the teacher recognizing all of this to where she can or he can, you know, do all these different layers of learning abilities and learning styles to help the students all thrive?
Right.
Or are we just going to sit and say, you're not learning it correctly, so we're going to settle with what you can do?
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I remember when we were in school and they changed the way that we approach math problems. Man, I'm like, child, I got a couple months.
Man.
So I get out of here. Because, baby, I went all these years of doing it this way. Now you're going to tell me that I got to do it another way and I got to show the work.
And I don't understand it because what we was doing worked. It made sense for us. We knew that you can do this and we'll get this. But now you got to do this and then come back to tell us why you got it like this and then figure out why it's supposed to not be like this. And it's like too many more steps, too many steps.
Yeah.
Cons or implications of having a sexist culture mindset. Students may not reach their full potential. If the argument for a sexist culture mindset is efficiency, it really depends on what that extra time is used for. Someone told me that his brother has a sexist culture mentality, but he spends his extra time playing video games and on social media. At the same time, kids today are spending more and more time on social media, and many studies show that social media is bad for your mental health. And we know from neuroscience that our brains grow a lot as teenagers and young adults. And our brains actually grow when we struggle and do hard things, a concept called neuroplasticity.
That is true.
So depending on what you're doing with that extra time, doing just enough could prevent people from realizing their full potential. And sexist culture kids may not get the better jobs and opportunities. The research on maximizers and satisficers do show that maximizers are the ones that get better and higher paying jobs. And when it comes time to look for a job, especially in the business world, your grades can help you. And from my experience working in HR, it's really the ones that do more that get promoted, that do better in the business world. I also want to point out that I know in the Netherlands there are certain programs where your grades do matter, where there's a selection process. And lastly, there is also a negative perception of the sexist culture. While some may brag about it in the school system, outside the school system and in the real world, there seems to be a negative perception of the sexist culture. People lack ambition, they lack work ethic. At the same time, there were a few comments and people that said, depending on the profession, they would rather have someone with an 8 mentality versus a 6's mentality.
If somebody's studying to be a doctor, you want them to have the highest grades. Because if they're operating you, they have to know what to do. So then a 6 is not enough.
So, could this be why the Dutch are so happy? Well, not quite. But one thing I've learned about the sexist culture in the Netherlands is that the system here allows for it compared to other countries. And it's also socially accepted to get a 6. For some, they argue that it's about efficiency, they save time, it's about well-being. For others, they see it as a negative. People don't realize their full potential. But I do appreciate the fact that good enough is accepted here in the Netherlands. As for myself, Ever since moving to the Netherlands, I've also learned to be more okay with good enough. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to try my best, but it means for me that I am more okay with being okay. Because in society, there's room for not only A and B players, but also C players. Some people want to excel. Some people want to excel and can only get 6s. And some people are okay with just a 6. Okay, well, I have a few questions for you. What do you think about the Dutch 6s culture?
All right, we're gonna start with that, man. Make sure you guys check this channel out. Very good information. Never knew about the 6 culture.
Right.
But obviously, there's things around this world that we get to learn every single day with y'all that you guys send in videos for. I think it's pretty interesting. But over here, we got like no choice. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you go in school, they're gonna push you regardless. They want you to do what we have already built in this society for everybody to achieve, and that's just be great. Be great. Do your best. Yeah. That's saying all that good stuff.
All right, y'all. We hope you guys enjoyed this video with us. Be sure to subscribe. We'll see you soon.
Peace.